You're listening to Audiology. Support our work on Patreon and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. The Munich Putsch, often referred to as the Beer Hall Putsch, was an unsuccessful revolt led by Adolf Hitler, the head of the Nazi Party, alongside General Erich Ludendorff and other Kampfbund leaders. This attempt to seize control took place in Munich, Bavaria on the 8th and 9th of November 1923 during the era of the Weimar Republic. In this attempted coup, roughly 2,000 members of the Nazi Party advanced towards the city center, aiming for the Feldherrnhalle, only to be stopped by the police. The clash resulted in the deaths of 16 Nazi Party members, 4 police officers and 1 bystander. Though Hitler initially eluded arrest and was whisked away to the countryside, he was apprehended 2 days later and charged with treason. The coup attempt thrust Hitler into the national spotlight, with the incident garnering international attention. Hitler's subsequent trial lasted 24 days and was extensively covered by the media, providing him a platform to broadcast his nationalistic views across Germany. Despite being found guilty of treason, he received a relatively light sentence of 5 years in Landsberg prison. During his confinement, Hitler dictated his thoughts and political ideology to fellow inmates Emil Maurice and Rudolf Hess, which became the basis for his book Mein Kampf. However, Hitler was released early after serving less than 1 year on December 20th, 1924. Following his release, Hitler shifted his focus from violent overthrow to gaining power through legitimate electoral processes. He dedicated himself to improving the Nazi Party's propaganda and strategy, with the goal of taking control of the German government within the existing political framework. In the early 1900s, numerous larger cities in the southern part of Germany featured beer halls as popular evening gathering places. These establishments were not only venues for enjoying beer, they also served as forums for engaging in political and social discussions. At times, they even hosted political rallies. One such venue in Munich was the Bürgerbraukeller, which gained historical notoriety as the starting point of the attempted coup known as the Putsch. The Treaty of Versailles, which marked the end of World War I, significantly diminished Germany's status as a leading power in Europe. Many Germans were resentful and felt betrayed by the treaty, with Adolf Hitler, a veteran of the German army with Austrian citizenship at the time, echoing the sentiment. Hitler considered the treaty a stab in the back, as the general belief was that the German army had not been vanquished in combat. He blamed Germany's civilian leaders, Jews and Marxists, denouncing them as November criminals. Remaining in Munich with the military post-war, Hitler got involved in courses designed to promote national thinking, set up by the Bavarian Army's Education and Propaganda Department, which was under the control of Captain Karl Mehr. Hitler was assigned as an operative with the rank of private and a recipient of the Iron Cross First Class to infiltrate the Deutsche Arbeiterpartie, also known as the German Workers' Party or DAPI, which he joined on September 12, 1919. He quickly agreed with much of the DAP's ideology and ascended to its leadership amid the post-war political volatility. Hitler also garnered the political charge of various Bavarian nationalist groups known collectively as the Kampfbund and commanded a burgeoning contingent of the Zuerst Sturmabteilung, also known as the SA, the NSDAP's paramilitary arm, which boasted about 15,000 members. Tensions and violence in the region led Bavarian Prime Minister Eugen von Knilling to declare a state of emergency on September 26, 1923. Gustav Ritter von Kahr was subsequently appointed with quasi-dictatorial status as State Commissioner to manage the crisis. Alongside von Kahr, 2 other key figures, Colonel Hans Ritter von Seiser of the State Police and General Otto von Lossow of the Reichswehr, formed a governing trio. Amid this backdrop, Hitler had planned a series of mass meetings starting from September 27, 1923. Concerned about disruptive potential, von Kahr immediately cancelled these meetings, thus precipitating a dilemma for Hitler. The Nazis fearing their supporters might gravitate towards communism, believed it was imperative to march on Berlin and usurp power. Hitler sought the assistance of World War I General Erich Ludendorff, hoping to win over the support of von Kahr and his triumvirate. Nevertheless, von Kahr, Caesar, and Lossow harbored their own ambitions to establish a nationalist dictatorship, sidelining Hitler's involvement. The beer hall Putsch, motivated by Mussolini's March on Rome, was hatched by Adolf Hitler and his cronies between October 22nd and 29th, 1922, targeting Munich as a launchpad to topple the Weimar Republic. However, unlike in Italy, Hitler realized the Munich commissioner Gustav von Kahr did not intend to undermine Berlin's authority. Seeking to capture a pivotal moment of public unrest, Hitler took control by storming the Bürgerbraukeller on November 8, 1923, where Kahr addressed a 3,000-strong crowd. With 603 of his essays surrounding the venue and a machine gun at the ready, Hitler proclaimed the start of a national revolution, effectively barricading the attendees. In an aggressive move, Hitler coerced Kahr, along with Otto von Lossow and Hans von Seisser, at gunpoint to endorse his coup and accept government roles. Despite earlier assurances to Lossow, Hitler thought they would comply on the spot, pressing Kahr to become the Bavarian regent. Kahr, however, resisted cooperation under duress. Under Hitler's instruction, other Nazi members fetched General Erich Ludendorff, a revered figure, to lend their coup legitimacy. Moreover, directives were issued to Ernst Röhm and Gerhard Rossbach to commandeer strategic points across the city. When Hitler, frustrated by Kahr, stepped away to handle the crowd, he capitalized on their enthusiasm, declaring their fight was against the Berlin Jew government rather than the Reichswehr or police. Dr. Karl Alexander von Müller, an eyewitness and historian, was struck by the swiftness with which Hitler swayed the room, describing the shift as magical. Hitler's final appeal before the crowd underscored their shared dedication to the fatherland, with the insinuation of dire consequences should their revolution fail. Despite initial adherence to Hitler, Ludendorff later unwisely allowed Kahr and his associates to go free. Meanwhile, Hitler's attempt to arm his forces via deception faced defiance from Oskar Kanzler. That night, the first skirmish between Röhm's men and the Reichswehr resulted in no fatalities, though tensions were high. By the next day, the Putsch was floundering until Ludendorff's impromptu command to march led them to a fatal encounter at Odeonsplatz, leaving 21 dead, including 16 of Hitler's followers. The bloodshed gave rise to the Nazi emblem, the Blutfahnen. Hitler fled but was caught 2 days hence. In a later account of Ludendorff's 1937 funeral, William L. Shirer suggested Ludendorff had scorned Hitler post-Putsch. Yet documentation surfaced in 2006 indicating Ludendorff did visit Hitler in Landsberg prison, debunking Schirer's earlier claim as reported by Der Spiegel. Trouble at the Lohenbraukeller in Munich was first spotted by 3 undercover detectives. When they reported the situation, Major Sigmund von Imhoff of the state police took swift action. Key communication hubs like the Central Telegraph Office and telephone exchange were secured by his Green Police units. But perhaps his most significant move was to inform Major General Jakob von Danner, the Reichswehr's high-ranked official in Munich. Von Danner, a noted war hero, had open contempt for Hitler, referring to him as the Little Corporal and his followers as Freikorps, bands of rowdies, as directly quoted. He also didn't hide his disdain for his superior, Lieutenant General Otto von Lossow, whom he called a sorry figure of a man. Determined to suppress the uprising whether Lossow agreed or not, von Danner prepared his forces at the 19th Infantry Regiment's base and initiated military readiness across the city. Simultaneously, Captain Carlwild was informed about the coup by the rebels themselves. He quickly got his men to defend the government's commissariat, ready to use lethal force if necessary. Later, around 11 at night, von Danner, backed by generals Adolf Ritter von Roeth and Friedrich Freiherr Kress von Kressenstein pressured Lossow to publicly distance himself from the coup. Franz Matt, the vice premier and head of education and culture, missed the initial events of the coup as he was dining with high-ranking Catholic church officials, including Cardinal Michael von Faulhaber and the future Pope Pius XII, Eugenio Pacelli. Shocked by the news of the coup, Matt unsuccessfully attempted to get a clear stance from Kahr. Promptly, he planned for a provisional government in Regensburg and drafted a call to loyalty for the military and civil servants. The decisive actions of these officials ultimately doomed those behind the coup. Rumblings of unrest were also felt at the University of Munich, where 3,000 students rioted and marched to honor the coup's symbolic location, the Feldherrenhalle. The disorder persisted until the arrest of Hitler was made public on November 9th. Following the events, Kahr and Lossow faced backlash and were branded by some as traitors. 2 days following an unsuccessful coup, Adolf Hitler was detained and faced charges of high treason before Germany's Special People's Court. His co-conspirators, including Rudolf Hess, were also apprehended, while others, such as Hermann Göring and Ernst Hanfstaengl, evaded capture by fleeing to Austria. The Nazi Party's base was subsequently searched, and its publication named The People's Observer was prohibited from distribution. In the aftermath of the coup, judicial reforms known as the Eminger Reform were enacted in January 1924 through an emergency decree eliminating the use of juries and establishing a judiciary comprised of professional and lay judges in Germany. This wasn't Hitler's first encounter with legal troubles. Previously, in September 1921, Hitler's disruption of a Bayernbund gathering with his stormtroopers led to arrests. He served approximately 1 month of a 3-month sentence. Judge Georg Neithardt, who presided over this case, would also oversee Hitler's subsequent trial. Beginning on the 26th of February 1924, Hitler's trial for his role in the coup unfolded over several weeks, concluding on the 1st of April 1924. He presented himself in a more restrained manner in court, defending his actions as selfless and necessary for the welfare of the German people, while downplaying his typical anti-Semitic rhetoric. He claimed full responsibility for the coup, bolstering his self-ascribed title of Führer, meaning leader. The lay judges, being staunchly pro-Nazi, were inclined to acquit Hitler, but were persuaded otherwise by Judge Neithardt. Hitler and Hess ultimately received sentences of 5 years fortress confinement for treason, which is a lenient form of imprisonment for those deemed to have acted with noble intentions. Hitler was imprisoned for just over 8 months before being released for good behavior. Despite his trial, Hitler's oratory skills were recognized as formidable, and he used the proceedings to promote his ideology, receiving substantial media coverage. Although he was fined 500 Reichsmarks, the sympathetic Judge Neithardt's lenient view and the prevailing attitudes of the time resulted in a minimal sentence. Erich Ludendorff was acquitted due to his claims of accidental involvement and a distinguished military record. Other co-conspirators received varied sentences or were released, while Göring, who had been injured and fled, developed a lifelong drug dependency as a result. Regarding Hitler's residency status, Judge Neithardt dismissed the possibility of deportation to Austria, arguing that the laws of the Weimar Republic should not apply to someone with Hitler's German sentiment. Consequently, Hitler remained in Germany. Despite the immediate consequences, the failed coup placed the Nazi Party in the national spotlight, enhancing their propaganda. While serving his sentence at Landsberg am Lech, Hitler, with help from Emil Maurice and Rudolf Hess, authored his manifesto Mein Kampf. His experiences during the Putsch changed Hitler's strategy towards a legal approach to gaining power. This approach of aligning with conservative nationalist monarchist interests aimed at exploiting and taking control of the National Socialist movement for political ascendancy re-emerged in 1933. This is particularly evident when Franz von Papen invited Hitler to form a coalition government, marking a pivotal moment in Hitler's rise to power. On November 9, 1923, 4 Bavarian police officers tragically lost their lives during the conflict known as the Beer Hall Putsch. These officers, Friedrich Fink, born on April 23, 1887, Nikolaus Hollweg, whose birth date was May 15, 1897, Max Schobeth, who was born in 1902 or 1903, and Rudolf Schraut, born on July 4, 1886, all fell on this fateful day when Adolf Hitler's attempt to seize power came to a violent head in Munich. The dedication in Adolf Hitler's manifesto Mein Kampf remembers 15 putschists who perished, cementing them as fallen heroes of his movement. Among them was Felix Alfard, a budding merchant from Leipzig born on July 5, 1901, who had recently arrived in Munich after finishing his studies in merchandising. Andreas Boridel, born in Aschaffenburg on May 4, 1879, was a hat maker and a World War I veteran. He became part of the Nazi lore when he was killed and his body covered a Nazi flag smeared with his blood, a flag that would be venerated as the Blood Flag. The list continues with individuals such as Theodor Casseller, Wilhelm Ehrlich, and Martin Faust, all bank clerks and World War I veterans. Anton Hetchenberger, an SA member and Nazi Party locksmith, was born on September 28, 1902. The businessman Oskar Körner, born January 4, 1875, had been active in the Nazi movement since its early days. The youngest of the fallen was engineering student Karl Laforce, born on October 28, 1904. Others, like valet Kurt Neubauer and businessman Klaus von Pape, were also memorialized. Judge Theodor von der Pforten, born May 14, 1873, had not only fought in World War I, but had a controversial history as a POW camp commandant. Johann Rickmers, another wartime veteran born May 7, 1881, had also been part of the Freikorps. Max Erwin von Scheubner-Richter, born January 21, 1884, was a prominent Nazi associate and close to Hitler during the Putsch, dying from a gunshot and in his fall causing injury to Hitler. Lorenz Ritter von Stransky-Griffenfeld and Wilhelm Wulff, both veterans and Nazi members, were also commemorated in Hitler's work. The book remembers Martin Faust and Theodor Casseller as victims of a tragic accidental shooting during a misunderstanding with a military regiment, as noted by Ernst Röhm. Mentioned as well was Karl Kuhn, a head waiter thought to have been part of the putsch, but was in fact an innocent bystander struck by a stray bullet while he was working, a casualty of the chaos that ensued. 15 individuals associated with the Nazi Party, along with a bystander named Karl Kuhn, are recognized as the initial martyrs of the movement by the party, a sentiment reflected by Adolf Hitler in his introduction to Mein Kampf. During a significant event involving the Nazi Party, the flag they carried was soaked in blood, leading to it being named the Blutfahne, blood flag. It became an emblem of the party used in ceremonial inductions for new members in Hitler's regime. A memorial featuring a swastika was installed by the Nazis at the Feldherrnhalle after Hitler rose to power, engraved with the phrase "Und ihr habt doch gesiegt" and you triumphed nevertheless. An ongoing tribute was present at the site, with the custodianship of either the SS or policemen and a cultural expectation to salute when passing by. The fallen were also honored on postage stamps highlighted in the book Ich Kampf and commemorated through the naming of military units. November 9th, referred to in German as der 9.11., turned into a significant date under the Nazi regime, marking the anniversary of the failed putsch. Munich was the epicenter of annual remembrance activities, including speeches by Hitler, a reenactment of the march, and commemorative ceremonies. Over time, this day could become fraught with tension due to various events such as the Night of the Long Knives, Kristallnacht, an assassination attempt on Hitler, and concerns during World War II for attracting enemy bombings. Throughout Nazi Germany, regional tributes took place as well. celebrating the memory of those lost to the Nazi cause. Major ceremonial acts included relocating the deceased to the Feldherrnhalle and interring them in the Ehrentempels, honor temples, on Königsplatz. After the defeat of Nazi Germany, the Allied Commission disinterred the bodies, offering the families options for a burial or cremation. In 1947, parts of the Ehrentempel were destroyed. In recent times, a plaque installed in front of the Feldherrnhalle since 1994 serves as remembrance not for the Putschists but for the Bavarian police who perished in opposition to the coup. The plaque is a tribute to the sacrifice made by the members of the Bavarian state police during the clash on November 9, 1923, with the inscription acknowledging their lives lost in the struggle against National Socialism.